Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Story Archives. I'm your host, Mario Busto, alongside
the other host, Zachary Newton. Welcome back.
We're back with Severance, Season 2, Episode 2. We actually just finished recording our instant reaction, and we kept it really short on that one. Actually, I think we kind of gypped the audience a little bit, because the thing was that I started catching myself saying deep dive details, and I was like, I gotta stop, because I'm gonna just say everything that I want to say for the deep dive right now. And you know what? Kind of punish the audience. The way that the innies were punished in this episode, punish the audience, because 75% of them are not subscribed to Story Archive. So until we see that number go to 50%, I may start cutting off the instant reactions short, man. I might do it. I might be like Mr. Milchick, showing up to their houses at midnight with a pineapple in hand. No pineapple unless they subscribe.
All right. Well, subscribe if you want a pineapple. There's a grocery store in most places that have pineapples.
What is up with the pineapples?
I don't know. It was a thing in this episode for sure. Let me guess. There was a pineapple involved.
Well, this place is so barren. One of the questions I asked was like, this town is so empty. Pip's Diner's empty. Every place is empty in this town. So maybe it's just a barren kind of Siberian tundra. Is that the name? What's the Siberia? Yeah. Siberian tundra. That's just, they've never seen a pineapple before. So imagine giving somebody like a tropical fruit in a place that's just always cold and wintry,
miserable,
and dead looking.
Blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought this was like out in the Northwest or something like that. But the more I watch the show, the more everything about it it feels either too manufactured or just like a little too foreign to me. Like I don't quite know where we are, you know?
It feels cold all the time in this town. Maybe it's in the state that belongs to the Egan's, because we did see a license plate in this episode that had presumably Kier in the center of it. So maybe they govern their own state, which is the reason why they're not scared of anybody. Supposedly they might be above the law to that degree. But you know where else it's cold? Is it snowing by you right now in Florida? Because you're pretty far up north.
I am far up north. I'll tell you, it's been in the low 30s.
Low 30s?
Low 30s. It hasn't snowed near me, but I heard it snowed on the west coast of Florida. I hope I'm not like smoking something saying that, but I saw a few people posting about like snow earlier this week, I want to say. So I don't know. Maybe I'll catch some.
I'd like to see you do an episode of Story Archive smoking something. That'd be fun.
All right. Smoke a beer.
If your in-laws hear this, he doesn't smoke anything, guys.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Anyways, it's 50 degrees down here, man. Even though tomorrow we're gonna be back. No, every day has been a high of 70, but it is freezing for me. For my Floridian blood, it is very cold down here right now, 50 degrees. But you can laugh at that wherever you are in the world listening to this. But this is as far as I'm concerned.
Tonight.
This is a tundra. This is a tundra, as far as I'm concerned.
I'll tell you, I've been in a freeze warning all week this week, so
yeah,
that's new.
I made it a point to walk outside multiple times today, because I've been head in the dirt, literally just editing videos all week. So yeah, if you guys don't know that, we haven't done a plug for our personal businesses in a while, but I run a production company. You can check it out, 1992films.com, although I do need to update the portfolio for like the last year and a half on there. And Zach runs a design company, or does design services as well. So,
exactly.
You
Product
can find
design.
Yeah, you can find all that info there. If you guys need any production services, video editing, or what have you, hit me up. If you need any design stuff, hit Zach up. You can reach us at contact@soapbox.house. And yeah, man, let's get into the episode, shall we?
Let's do it. Wild episode. Great episode for.
Is it gonna get the coveted Rotten Tomatoes 2 weeks in a row, 10 out of 10? Which F Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, I've seen some of their stuff. I feel like they're bought.
Attention to them in so long.
I just feel like they're bought and paid for. I see some of the stuff that they'll rate 10 out of 10. Feels more political than anything sometimes, rather than
I'll watch the
good
audience rating on there.
Yeah, I prefer the audience rating compared to their rating most of the time. You know, just because that's the true test. Then
That's what people
occasionally you have an audience that doesn't know what the hell, what's a good film sometimes. But I feel like once you start getting into like, hoity-toity type
If it's
of
experimental stuff, I can understand maybe not leading on the audience rating too much, but thankfully I have not run into that situation, at least not that I can recall.
What is Nosferatu rated?
On Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah, what is it? Let's do an experiment.
Let's see, Nosferatu.
Because I wanted a historical... Dracula's the only book that made me get goosebumps, like hair raised on my arms reading because of the imagery of it. And I thought it was going to be a historical timepiece horror. But all I'm hearing about Nosferatu is it's a vampire having sex with a chick, like the whole movie, pretty much demonically possessing her. And okay, 85. So you got 85. 8573 is fair. That means both are pretty much enjoying it.
Yeah.
What does it say? Obsession, gothic tale of obsession between cinematography wise, beautiful looking film. I think the only movie I've ever watched from Robert Eggers was The Northman, and I don't even think I finished that. I got to go back and I'm slacking on his stuff, to be honest with you. I know he's done The Northman, he did The Lighthouse, he did that, but people didn't tune in for that, so my bad. But although some of his stuff reminds me of Severance in some way, like the way that it's so stylistically specific and just every single detail, maybe that's why it came to mind for me. But okay, let's get into the episode, Zach, because you don't have much to add on that. So
no, I don't. I haven't watched the movies.
Yeah. We get a lot in this one. Specifically, the most fascinating to me is Helena. And we're going to call her Helena when she's on the outside and Helly when she's on the inside for distinguishing. Although I'm not 100% sure she got re-severed going back in. I guess we're going to find that one out. But she seems to be the CEO, COO of this operation, sort of being watched over by this guy, this mysterious, hulk of a guy named Drummond. And her father is essentially, the most high up guy at the moment. He's not very happy with her because this whole episode we're pretty much catching up on the flip side of what we didn't see in the first episode, which was what happened to the Audis while everything, while we were just catching up with what's happening now in the present timeline, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of this was, it felt like her trying to clean up her PR nightmare here. So I can imagine why her father was not too thrilled. She seems to have done a decent job, I guess, by the looks of it in this episode. I don't think anybody suspects too much.
Well, I'd say she's done a pretty spectacular job considering she's managed to put a PR twist that she was drunk on medication that mixed incorrectly with her severed mind.
Non-Lumen medication, mind you.
Non-Lumen,
good sir.
So they're pretty much like the Oracle of companies. They just do everything, right?
Yeah.
Or Johnson & Johnson. They have their hands in every single basket possible. But no, I'd say she did a pretty spectacular job. She spun the PR thing. She managed to get Mark S., who seems to be the most integral, most important member of MDR, microdata refinement.
Yeah.
And we find out about this mysterious mission called Cold Harbor, but we will get into that more later. And just everything that she's doing, really. The only thing that stuck out or kind of might be what unravels everything in the story for Helly or Helena is that she saw that she's actually fallen in love on the inside, which Audi Mark also found out for the first time in this episode from Milchick.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to come of that. The thing I'm wondering though is, is Helly inside Helly or not? Because when we see Helena in this episode, she does seem to obsess a lot, or it felt more like she was studying for a test to me when she was watching the videos of inside the severed floor.
You think to essentially go covert as herself, not resever herself to go back to MDR?
Potentially, because she seems like she might be the biggest risk as an innie, just because of how far. She's caused the most damage, so I would imagine Helena would want to keep as much control over herself at this point as possible.
I disagree with you. I think that was a genuine character. Maybe that was the reason she was watching the tape, but I don't think that was the reason for her reaction. I think that there was actually a moment there where she was touched by what she saw. And maybe there was almost a moment where, similar to Irv, who's doing those paintings and trying to get a message to his innie, right? Of this hallway. Similar to him, which we're going to talk about him later, because what was that phone call about? There seems to have been some connection there between her innie and her outie, but that's not too uncommon for this show. We do see her early in the episode holding her neck, which is the pain that she would have felt from the rope. As she tried to hang herself on the inside, and then Dylan even comes out with an ice bag on his head, out of his shift, not really knowing what happens. Right? You probably leave the office and like, what the hell happened? My head is killing me.
You slipped on an ice cube, buddy. No, Milchick tackled you. That's what happened. Yeah. No, I mean, Helena, she did also kind of seem, I don't know if jealous is the right word. She did seem very surprised that she had fallen in love with somebody. You were mentioning in the instant reaction that she doesn't seem like a woman who has any love interest outside of the severed floor, at least as an outie. I think I would tend to agree with you there.
Huh. Did you know what fetid moppet meant when you heard it in this episode for the first time?
Does it have to do with like a kid, a child or something?
It does. Did you Google that, Zach?
No.
What did you make of that interaction between Helly and her father?
He just seems to express some level of disgust towards her.
Why, though? Was it her choice to get severed? What, strategically, politically, why does it make sense for her to be severed in the first place? Why would he... I would understand why he'd be mad at her. The Egan's do seem like a very strange and weird family. But something deeper there. There's a disgust. Maybe Helena does want to tear it apart from the inside. Or maybe that Cold Harbor experiment that we're hearing about for the first time, maybe it's so important that she needs to be in the department as well. What was your thought about just her relationship with her father, and maybe why is she inside of the department?
The relationship with the father, I'm not sure. They seem to have some level of incestual relationships from what I remember in, I guess, season 1 storytelling.
Incestuous relationships? Where did you hear about that?
I feel like everybody's like they're with people that are like close relatives. That's the feeling that I got from what I watched in season 1, which was 2 years ago. So bear with me there. I might be a little off on that. As far as her relationship with her father right now, though, it's hard for me to kind of pick up on anything else from that scene outside of just like his disgust and disappointment and what seems to be her childish behavior. I don't know if he's frustrated with her because he knows now that she severed herself, or if he's just frustrated with her because
that doesn't make any sense.
She almost
that doesn't make any sense, Zach. How would he not know that she's severed?
I don't know. It could have been an undercover thing that she was doing. Who knows?
No, that doesn't make any sense. There's no way that his daughter, the heir to his whole fortune, that he wouldn't know that she's severed. Everybody knows that she's severed. In fact, the board even gives them Helly at the end. That doesn't make any sense. I don't see how that could be the thing. But he definitely seems like an abusive, like horrible father. That's the extent of what we know. To what extent did it affect the reason why she got severed? I'm assuming we'll find out. But from what I could tell, at least, it didn't seem like there was any sort of motivation for her to want to destroy the company prior to her seeing herself with Mark on the footage.
Yeah. I thought the main reason why she had become severed to begin with was just like a political move, because there's so many people that talk about how this is inhumane to sever people. It's just like, well, look, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Like, it must not be that bad. Clearly didn't turn out the way she planned.
I was relieved that Drummond wasn't her husband or something like that. I was like, at first I thought maybe either her husband or her brother. I couldn't figure out who he was, but it just seems like he's a bodyguard enforcer type, because you see him at the diner spying on on Devin and Mark as they're having their breakfast, which Pip's Diner looks fire. It looks like it'd be actually a pretty good diner to eat at.
Yeah.
Didn't see the food, but it looked like a good diner.
It looks fun. I mean, we got a little bit of coffee that came out.
Yeah.
Again, like, it's such beautiful shots too. You get this little diner in the middle of this like snowy area.
Yeah.
Kind of want to go there.
Yeah, I guess like nothing from the real world exists there. They wouldn't just put a Cracker Barrel in the show, right? But you know, you are a coffee snob, but you notoriously love like your crappy diner coffee. Like you love diner coffee.
It's a thing. I do. Like if I'm out, like I love good crappy diner coffee. Like it's like I gotta have that, or I've gotta have what I actually like, which is like really good stuff. If it starts to get in between, it's just not good. And, you know, I like the diner coffee because it's lighter. You know, you get that coffee flavor, but it's light, it's bright, it's watery. It's good.
You know, I got a bag of Starbucks coffee, which usually doesn't like. I go to Starbucks frequently, but I usually never buy the ground stuff. But somebody gave me a bag. My mom gave me a bag, and it tastes like diner coffee, but it's like in a good way, like an actual, but stronger. It doesn't taste like super light diner coffee. No, it tastes a little bit stronger. But, anyways,
interesting.
Mark's at the party. We pick up at the party pretty much to start this episode, where he says she's alive. He's closed-minded to the idea that he was referencing his wife. So him and Rickon are all, you know, talking about this being related to the baby, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, oh no, please, somebody's got to think that he's talking about his wife. He's got the damn frame of her in his hand when he says this, right? Thankfully, his sister's like the mother from Stranger Things. While the whole world is telling her no, she's like, what if it is about her, right? And, you know, from Mark's perspective, you can kind of, it's fair to be like, okay, I understand why Mark's closed-minded about this. He literally saw the burning corpse of his wife, and he identified her body, right? So he's had a pretty traumatic thing, and we even got to experience his trauma a little bit with Milchick bringing it up in his pineapple session with Mark, which sounds a little dirty, but
it does not have a good ring to it.
Yeah, well, he mentioned when Mark said that thing in his, I guess, his intro meeting of getting qualified to be severed, where he said every day felt like a year. You know, Mark is a guy who's still grieving over this. And now, I will say the one thing that kind of threw me off this episode was how quickly everybody else decided to go back to work. And there's like a dynamic going on with the severed and the non-severed folk, right? Severed folk are looked down upon in society to the point where Dylan can't get a job anywhere, not even at a door factory.
Yeah.
Which is funny. It reminded me of the Rick and Morty. There's an element of Rick and Morty humor in this show. Remember, there's like I forget which episode of Rick and Morty. I'm not caught up like at all, but there's an episode about like just a door factory. He's like, we got doors everywhere. Look at this door. It's just doors galore. And this boss looks just like Dylan too, which is the funny part.
So similar. Yeah, they looked almost. I had to sit there for a minute. I'm like, are they like? Is he playing both roles? I didn't think so. But you know, what I find interesting though is
circumcise your brain.
Know, yeah, I mean, look, as a severed individual though, we're like, why would you hire somebody, you know, that has years of experience working doing a thing? Well, because they've gained knowledge over those years of doing the thing. Severed people have zero growth because the part of them that actually does the task and does the work is locked away forever.
Yeah, which, you know, part of me thought,
not a good choice.
You know, we'll talk about this maybe more in another episode, but part of me thought like maybe the reason they're severed is because they need to work on things that are so secretive that nobody outside can find out about it. That's part of it. Which makes me think, what if our intelligence agencies had the option to sever people? They'd probably do it if they could, right? Because think about it. Yeah. What would be more perfect than somebody who can't remember the secrets that they had on the inside, right? That'd be pretty useful. But it's interesting to me that they're so discriminated against, which made me wonder, how well are they getting paid to be severed? They got to be making bank to be severed.
I mean, what was the raise that they were going to give Mark S? 20%?
They were going to give him a 20% bump. But I figure if Mark S would have sued the company, he could have made a lot more money. Because he could have sued them for Cobel's behavior, right?
Yeah.
In some sense. And, well, then again, they did say the OTC overtime contingency was in the paperwork.
Engaged. Uh-huh.
But the Cobel thing, I thought at first that's the reason they were kissing his butt so much, was because of that. Like, they didn't want that to backfire. But turns out he does have some sort of pivotal role to play in the Cold Harbor mission. But what would you say, like, ballpark it, US dollar amount, how much are they getting paid annually to be severed?
I don't know, like $250,000 a year.
250?
Yeah.
And Mark's living in that place?
Okay. I mean, he might not be paying anything to live in that place. Who
Driving
knows?
that car at 250 a year?
I mean, who knows? I don't know what the value of the dollar is at the time that we're looking.
He does say, like, wow to the 20%. So is he actually money driven? Because he doesn't seem like a money driven individual.
No, but I think you could pull anybody off the street and just be like, I'm going to give you 20% more than you're making now doing the same thing. And I feel like most people would be like, huh. You're going to have some reaction to that.
The real reason Mark went back, though, is also because he found out that he fell in love on the inside. We were asking last episode, what brought these people back? What is going to be the motivating factor that made them all decide to come back? And that was partly the reason for this episode. Yeah. Mark is the intrigue that he fell in love with somebody. Now it's also got to be tied to the Cobel interaction he had, obviously, right? That's why he's going to look for Gemma. Yeah. So I take it back. It's probably because of his interaction with Cobel, right? That occurred.
I would imagine. Yeah, I would imagine pretty heavily. He doesn't seem very interested in looking into his wife, like, at all. Like, he's very convinced that she's dead. But I mean, I would be wanting to understand what was going on with the whole Cobel thing too. And then, I mean, when we look at the other individuals here, though, I mean, I just, maybe you saw something I didn't see. I just felt like their motivation, at least for what Dylan, was that, I mean, he needed a job. Like, it was a very externally motivated thing. He needs a job. He's got a family. He's got to make money. I think, which actually saying that makes me take back my 250 guesstimate, because I mean, I don't think he'd be hurting that bad like a few days later.
250, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For me, my thought process with Dylan, I don't know if I mentioned this in the first deep dive or not. I was wondering if it was somebody who had like a terminal illness that he couldn't pay for, like he needed the benefits. Because the first question he asks when he goes to the door company is, "What are the benefits like?" Mm-hmm. Which made me wonder, this might be the type of guy who needs benefits more than a salary, right? And by the way, his wife Gretchen sounds like a sweetheart on the phone. In fact, I wanted to punch Dylan in the face for his reaction.
Yeah, he was being a douchebag.
Yeah, which I get it. You're mad, like, kind of, I think everybody's had a moment there, like, yeah, it didn't work out. Like, yeah, I would have picked up. Give me some space, But yeah, it was kind of out of character for Dylan to react that way.
Yeah. I understand I mean, at least I feel like I understand his question about focusing on benefits, though it seemed more like he cared about insurance for his family. Like, he's, trying to keep an eye out for them and make sure everybody's safe and healthy.
But it feels a little too weak for it just to be that. There has to be something more motivating, right? For each of these characters. With Mark, we already know, and it makes sense. For Dylan, it has to make sense too. It cannot just be he needs a job. It has to be that there was a reason he got severed, So I think we'll learn more. There's a reason we haven't seen his wife. I think there's a reason for all these things. Now, by the way, there's no way in hell they're going to bring his real wife to that.
No.
It'll be a fake wife that they bring in. The same way they lied about them being superstar reformers on the outside. They're going to lie and bring some other woman in. He's probably going to be devastated when he finds out he's been cheating on his wife. Just my guess. That's probably what will happen if I had to guess.
Inside, I kind of thought maybe they wouldn't bring anybody in, and it would just be like this very weird shrine to his family that he would walk into or something.
No, I think these people are evil. So I think they would bring a woman in who's not his wife. He'd probably have sex with her under the pretense thinking of that it is his wife. Then they would tell him, that's actually not your wife, and then they would blackmail him forever, pretty much. And that's pretty much, we'll tell your wife you were unfaithful on the inside, and then it'll ruin your family life on the outside, and then they'll own him to some degree.
Can you imagine the overtime control kicking on or off in the middle of that?
It might. I could definitely see that being a scenario. He seems like he might be the weak link in the four. Like there could be the most controlled because he seems to be the most desperate of all four for the job itself. Irv, on the other hand, smooth operator. Milchick shows up, doesn't give him almost any information at all. Okay, so right off the bat, he's already wary of this organization. He has that note about Bert Goodman inside, or Bert plus Goodman or something like that. And then he makes a call and says, I got my innie got the message or something like that. Right? Who is he talking to? And why is Bert pulling up in his car watching him in the phone booth?
I don't know who he's talking to, but wasn't he investigating like this? Like that's how he got involved and became severed because he was looking into what was going on?
Yes. But still, it still begs the question. Maybe he has something to do with the organization that confronted Mark early in the first season about getting unsevered.
Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe Irv is more intricately important than we think he is.
I feel like there's something very interesting that's going to come of it. Like I can't imagine we're just going to be shown, oh, hey, this guy's investigating things and that's kind of the end of it. Like there's got to be some hook there. Some outside organization. Maybe it's a competitor that's looking into it.
Maybe. It could be. Reminds me, I was listening to Shamath Palapanathia. He's a founder of one of the founders of Facebook, and brilliant guy. He's on the All In podcast. A lot of common sense stuff. Nothing really. There's not much to disagree with. I mean, not everything that I agree with on him, but he's just a smart guy, man. He was on Tucker Carlson, and he was talking about technical supremacy, pretty much, or like. He was talking about the two most important things for a nation. It's kind of unarguable, right? To have the strongest economy and to have the strongest military. Everything else, like you could write the best books, you can make the best art, which is true. There's the quote about, like what stage of civilization the poets and the artists come out, and it's because the first couple of generations were able to do their thing. So, yeah, he was talking about leading the way for AI. As being an AI superpower, and he was essentially saying that it costs $10 billion to create this AI data center or this model that China did for like 12 million or something like that. So he's like, what's going to happen? What is the world going to pick? So like, to your point of like, is it a competitor? It could be a competitor trying to break into the Lumen industry and maybe find the proprietary information for how to sever people or how to disrupt their company in some way, right? So that would be an interesting thread if they decided to go that route. That would be cool. But I do tend to think that he's working with the more underground type of organization that is trying to infiltrate and take down this organization. But I have a lot of questions. Does Bert recognize him? How does Bert recognize him? What's the deal with that? Any theories, you who never likes to be wrong?
Thanks for throwing that one at me. I don't know how good these severed situations are, really. Like, I feel like there's this spilling over of, I don't know, visions or something when maybe there's, like, passion involved. So maybe they're also, I don't know, friends on the outside or something, Bert and Irv. That would probably be my only guess. I mean, I can't imagine why he would just randomly like pull over and look at this guy, unless they knew each other. Maybe they're lovers on the outside. I mean,
no, they're not. We know they're not.
I mean, they could be undercover lovers. You never know.
No, man. No, you're forgetting. You're forgetting. Irv literally ended the season banging on his door, saying, "Bert, Bert." How would he not remember him?
Well, that was innie Irv.
Yeah, but Audi didn't know who he was. He has the note in his pocket. It says Bert.
You're right. You're right. I forgot.
It's easy to get confused between the innie outie when
It
they're like
is.
bouncing between the two. Like I could see why, but no, they don't know each other. As far as maybe Bert knows him, but Irv does
May-
not know him.
Maybe
But
when you retire, you like you get extra information or
about your
something.
innie, maybe
Yeah.
that could be. That's what my next question was going to be. Is that what happens when you actually get fired? Does something happen? Does your brain go back to normal? Like, what does it mean to be fired? Do they kill you? Because when Milchick meets with Helly or Helena, right? Audi Helly, she needs him to find out what the innies told. Who did they get in contact with? What did they tell them? Okay. And then he says, should I fire them? Which I was wondering, is that doublespeak for murdering them? And she says, let Kier guide your hand. It goes back to that religious zealotry cult thing that they got going on with Kier.
Yeah.
But, there was a couple of, I don't know, there's just been a few moments where I feel like they're double speaking and they mean murder when in reality, I just don't know. Like even at the dinner table when when Milchick shows up to Devin's house, he says, I would hate to reward any Mark who's been so courageous and kind and good. I'd hate to reward him with unexistence, which is like, beautifying murder pretty much. It's like just a pretty word for murder. Right. I wonder what that process looks like. I wonder if we'll see what that looks like. And I wonder if that's what happened to Bert in some sense.
It's interesting. I mean, anytime we talk about this, I always think back to season 1 when Irv is so upset because Bert's retiring. And Irv specifically says he's dying. Like, Bert's innie is essentially dying. So it could be as simple as firing them is just terminating their innie. Like they're never going to come back. The Audi's not going to know anything, which, so I do kind of have somewhat of a theory. It's something that just kind of came to me when I was watching this episode. And I have no idea how much stock is in this, but if I'm thinking about Lumen, the industry, the company, I feel like I would want as much control as possible over information and over what's shared, what's told. I mean, we have a severed floor with people that are doing a job that they can't even know about on the outside. But then you have people like Selvig and Milchick who are not severed, and they're always aware. They're always there on the inside and the outside. And the question that was coming through my mind is like, well, how would I as Lumen control them at this point? Like, I feel like I need to have some level of control over them. Otherwise, they're just wild, loose cannons that have tons of power. I have a feeling that Milchick and Selvig are actually severed, and they just don't know they're severed. And they're like always in this business mode, so that if Lumen has to, they can just flip that individual off and they're not going to know anything about Lumen at all. Nothing from the inside, nothing from the outside. And effectively kill, I guess, that individual.
That's an interesting theory. I think you could be right about it. I was leaning more towards this being, you've seen James Bond, and what they insinuate is the process of selecting a 00 agent, which is like orphan, a specific type of upbringing, no attachments, that type of style. To me, it was more of like, I feel like they maybe handpick the type of people for these positions, people who have no attachments, who would become obsessed, almost cult-like obsessed with it, to a degree. Yeah. But they could be. I totally think that there could be some scenario there just completely, like there's a different state of severed where, like you said, they're just in this mode all the time. They are no longer their former person. This is the only thing that they know. And so they sort of train this person from the ground up. But then you'd have to bring up Miss Cobel, and you'd have to wonder, maybe it's falling apart for her. Maybe as she's getting older, maybe something affected her that kind of, fried the terminal.
Yeah, you said something a moment ago that maybe they're brought up like this. Remember Mrs. Huang?
Yeah, the little girl.
Yeah, mate.
Do you think they're making clones? Do you think these are not real humans?
maybe I'm not saying they're clones. That's interesting though. I'm not saying they're clones, but what I'm thinking though is like maybe they do exactly what you just said. They raise them up, and so maybe they sever these individuals at such a young age that they know nothing else. And you know, like this is what they teach them, so they don't really have to go look for people that are, I guess, this addicted to power or addicted to whatever they're doing. So I thought that was interesting.
I just Googled, can babies have goat milk instead of like breast milk or formula? Because I'm wondering, like, maybe they need all these goats because they got a bunch of babies that they're just raising. But apparently, no, you should not give goat milk instead of breast milk. It is not considered safe for infants and can be harmful due to its high protein content and lack of essential nutrients needed for a baby's development. Always
Good to know.
So, you know, I guess the goats are not, because they have a baby factory of little Milchicks that they're raising to take over future MDR departments.
What a shame. I still want to know what's going on with those dang goats, man.
Yeah, the goats.
It just feels so out of left field. Like so much of this show just feels so out of left field. Like I'm like, what's the meaning? What is the reason? I know.
Is it just pure comedy that we don't need to know everything that happens within Lumen? So that sometimes they'll just do like a random cameo.
It could be.
Also, props to the Lumen video department, able to make that video like in less than 5 days. That
Oh yeah.
crazy claymation.
Yeah, that was some quick turnaround. Maybe there's some sentient AI thing in this whole system too.
Oh gosh.
But then again, why have people doing macro data refinement? Like, couldn't you just have the AI do it? I don't know.
Who knows? Maybe that's the point. Who knows? Who knows, man? I feel like all of our future, I don't know. I feel like the direction we're going with AI, I don't even know what civilization is going to look like 75 years from now. It is crazy how rapidly things are progressing. I feel like we're heading towards a future where every villain in every movie is just going to be AI for some reason. Just that's where we're heading.
I mean, it's an interesting topic right now. It's definitely a hot topic. I mean, didn't OpenAI just release like an agent, their operator?
There was some sort of breakthrough or something like that, but who knows, man? It's a race for artificial general intelligence right now. That is the ongoing race. Maybe it's like the new space race, so to speak, right? Because Trump is big on trying to make America the dominant force in AI, the dominant force in crypto. And now they just did they did like a three-part partnership or joint venture or whatever with SoftBank, with OpenAI, and with Larry Ellison, who's the CEO of Oracle. And they did a $500 billion investment that they're going to use federal land for AI data centers, because the AI data centers have to be like 10 times bigger than regular data centers. So there is like we'll see. It'll be an interesting few years to see where we are like 4 years from now in terms of progress. That would be crazy.
I'll tell you, quantum computing and artificial intelligence are two things that both excite me but terrify me at the same time.
Yeah, you just gotta adapt. Like know how to adapt, and how do you adapt, right? Is like the key, right? I talk to people all the time of like just what could it, somebody was asking me yesterday about, what do you think about this? Like, you think it's gonna replace this? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like specifically with what I do in production, I think the three core elements to production is directing, editing, and writing. I think those are things that require a human touch in order for something to feel special artistically. There's just so many decisions being made. The repetitive tasks, though, even though I'm not going to say color is not an art, but what I'm trying to say is I think AI is going to simplify tasks like that, which, by the way, AI has already simplified like my workflow to some degree. But it'll be interesting to see like what happens to people whose industries can get completely wiped out, and how do they? That's why it needs to be regulated in some sense too. But anyways, back to the Lumen artificial intelligence that's controlling everything within it, as Zach thinks, and that's his main theory about the show. Cobel asks for an apology, which I was wondering, why does she need an apology?
It's a power move. That's what it felt like.
How was she mistreated? Do you recall like what from season 1 stood out that she was mistreated, that the board doesn't talk to her? that they disrespected her, maybe kind of didn't take her seriously when she reported the OTC situation going on.
Possibly.
And
I feel like she got like her wrist slapped in season 1. Maybe I'm
she's
remembering.
She's a Dolores Umbridge type of character that scares me. Like she actually characters like her freak me out. And I think she's going to be the type that if they actually try to sunset her and make her irrelevant to the company, that she will self-destruct. Like she will try to bring the whole thing down. And part of me wonders if her obsession with Mark has something to do with trying to get any Mark to see that Miss Casey is his wife, you know? Trying to do something that's outside of her power to do and that she doesn't quite know how to figure out, or trying to make things right. Maybe she did something horrible and she feels guilty about it. And so now she tries to make up for it by giving Mark cookies and trying to help the sister and blah, blah, blah. Or maybe she has no family and she wants to see what that's like, right? That's a thing. People who didn't have like familial love, they see that, they want that, you know, they don't know how to act around it. Maybe they even begin to resent a person who has it because they never experienced it, so they think that it's going to fall out, you know, at some point. Like, what's the catch, right? Maybe she wants to see maybe Mark's perfect life fall apart. You know, the wife, the sister who's a sweetheart, you know, weird brother-in-law but nice brother-in-law. All these different things, right?
Yeah, no, I mean it's interesting. I don't think, I'm not saying you were saying this, but I don't think she's like romantically
oh yeah, the throuple thing. Everything was like BS from episode 1. Everything was BS.
Yeah, man, she does freak me out though. I feel like you could wake up in the middle of the night and she'd be the person to be standing at the edge of the bed or end of the bed with like a knife, just ready to kill you. Oh, if you cross her.
That's a great visual before we go to sleep.
I know.
Sheesh. It's too late.
Mario's not sleeping tonight.
I'm gonna have nightmares about Cobel tonight. Jeez.
That's how I feel.
Woof. Yeah, I agree though. She would be that type. She'd be the type that you ever hear about those women who like cut off their man's junk, like if they find out. She'd be that type for sure. For sure.
What'd you say about me?
Yeah, 100%. I think there will be an interesting power play though that happens between her and Helena at a certain point in this season, and I'm just really interested to see whether Helena cracks and it like doesn't actually completely work for Lumen.
You mean like she quits?
No, like that she eventually just starts to turn and try to sabotage Lumen and
turns against them, sees the faulty ways.
Yeah, or she'd continue to be the villain. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how powerful she is inside of the Lumen industry. Like, is she? I mean, she's got to be pretty damn powerful, but I feel like her father's still in charge, potentially. Do you disagree with that?
I think the board is in charge, like every major company. The board calls the shots.
That's a fair point.
Right?
Yeah.
Every company. That's kind of the crappy part about publicly owned companies, which is a lot of times they don't do what's best for the company because it's all about share price and the shareholders. Which if you watch the movie Steve Jobs, you'll see like that exact situation play out when he gets fired from his own company. And they beg him to come back, right? That's just one example of many that you see. And you see it in every CEO book that you'll read. Go read Bob Iger's book when he was CEO of Disney. You see, like, between the lines, there is that innate pressure. It's the reason he had to come back when his successor seemingly failed at Disney, Bob Chapek, which, my bad, Bob, I don't really know you, but, you know, that's just pretty much what the two Bobs, man. Bob Iger came back to replace his successor. So you can just kind of read between the lines of that constant pressure of creating shareholder value, right? So the board is definitely in charge here. Whether her father's on the board or not, don't know. No idea. I would assume he is. They seem to be a very powerful family. I'm assuming they have some controlling stake in the company to some degree. What extent, we don't know. But she is both in charge and also a pawn at the same time because they do willingly sacrifice her because whatever Mark is doing is so important for their bottom line, I'm assuming, that they need him to get to the finish line on that project, which is really interesting to me. That's probably the most interesting thing of the episode. That's why everything's so important in this show. Is that just the one little line about Cold Harbor? If you're eating crap, multitasking, you miss that.
Yeah, you miss it. But that's what I like about episodes when they're what I would say slow. Like I want to be drawn into it. Like I like it when they make me feel like I can't look away because I'm gonna miss something super important. And I feel like almost every, if not every single episode of Severance has been that way for me. Like I feel like I always need to watch everything and roll it back half the time. It was like, wait, what was that?
One of the things I noticed is just, my notes are so long for this. There's endless things we could talk about here, which is the tough part about it. Like I'm going through my notes, they got to be like 5 pages long. My notes, it's just insane. Speaking of my notes, let me scroll back up here. Helena records his PR message. He essentially lies to the world about what went down at that gala, right? Mm-hmm. Which was that she was supposedly drunk and she was making a joke, and she has to atone for her actions in some way.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting way to spin it. They were able to do all these different things, man. I mean, they even printed out fake newspaper clippings with them as reformers on there. I mean, the technology they have to fake things too. So AI has definitely got to play a role. Or they got like insane designers, Photoshop editors.
They're just sitting there waiting. They're just like, give it to me. Give it to me now.
Yeah. I mean, they had a whole plan ready to go. So.
Yeah. You know, I was when I was watching this episode, I had a thought come to me about how you could potentially communicate with your innie, because we know like letters and written things can't get in to the severed floor, but everyone has their watch, right?
Morse
so
code.
I'm wondering, like, yeah, well, maybe not Morse code specifically, but like some sort of code that has to do with the time on your watch. Like, what if you would set your watch to something and just like, when you pull a little dial out and it just stops ticking? I'm saying that while I'm wearing an Apple Watch. On a real watch, you pull the dial out and it stops ticking. Mm-hmm. Maybe you could do something like that and like start to give yourself some messages and piece things together. I thought that was pretty clever, at least when I thought of it. I was like, I wonder if that would work. I wonder if that would get by their system.
I don't think we know enough about their system to know what works and what doesn't. Half the time it feels like they're so lax about everything, but then you see an episode like this and realize how buttoned up the whole operation is, and it makes you wonder. By the way, if you want to be concerned and quit your job at all of being a severed person, how about this? You know what screams that you're hiding something? Show up at my house in the middle of the night and ask me, everything good? Like Milchick just popping up in the middle of the night shows that nothing is good about what they do on the inside. Why would you need to do that if it was like all, up and up on the inside?
Yeah. I mean, I can understand wanting to keep secrets, but this is next level. It's like they're in there killing people. They got to know what you saw. What did you say? Which, by the way, Mark S's sister hid the photo of
good move
him and his wife, from Milchick.
It made me wonder. It stood out to me that Mark was the only one who wasn't fired. Why? Because he essentially fired anybody who had no contact with, who he thought had no contact with anybody. But Mark, he allowed him, maybe because he wanted to find out more information. I think it has to do with that Cold Harbor thing. But it also kind of rang true to me, I don't know, man. You ever see these companies that just they will do what they did to Cobel if that person has no more power. But if you have any power or leverage, they'll kiss your ass to Timbuktu. Where Helly says, even to Cobel, we treated you poorly and we apologize. It's all meaningless. She doesn't mean it at all. But she's sunsetting her. And then Mark, on the other hand, it's we'll come to your house, we'll bring you pineapples, we'll give you a 20% bump in pay. We'll even do these wellness checks with your innie that we're going to start implementing at the company, which they're not, because they spun the story, so there's no such thing as severance reform. Do you think we're going to get a whole different storyline on the outside of people who are fighting against severance from being a legal thing, that we're going to get some sort of side of like maybe Congress or something like that?
I think it's possible. I mean, it seems like the opinion of the general public is that this whole severance thing is not good. It's frowned upon. It's looked down on everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
And when you were talking a moment ago, I was thinking, what if part of the reason Mark S is, I guess, as important as he seems, because I mean they didn't just fire people who were outside, like they fired Dylan as well, who was inside holding the controls, so he didn't talk to anybody. But I don't know, maybe Mark S's wife was, I don't know, looking into things as well.
Maybe.
And
she was a professor. We don't really know what she taught in detail.
So maybe she was getting too close to something, and they tried to kill her, but took her for themselves.
By the way, I don't know if this was just a toss away, but we did learn more about who the people were who were the replacement MDR employees, which seem to be just fillers at this point. Mark seems to be the most important individual. Like this whole experiment is for Mark almost in some way. We know that 2 of them were fired from 5X, so I'm assuming that's Mark W and the girl, blanking on her name. I don't think we got her name actually. And then 1 is a floater from overseas. I'm gonna just assume that's Dario, who speaks only Italian. So I wonder if they come into play in some sense at some point.
Yeah, I was wondering, if there are actually a bunch of other, I guess, Lumen buildings with severed floors in all of these other countries, like around the world. Because didn't they mention that in the video? But the video is mostly fake. Like, I wonder if if they're as big as they said they were, or if it's just this one tiny facility.
Good point. You bring up a good point there, because Cobel has such a big deal about being in charge of the severed floor, to the point where it felt like almost maybe there is no other one, right?
Yeah.
All right. That about concludes everything I have to say, deep dive wise. We can get into some comments, some emails here, and go from there. We did get an interesting note from Mr. Ryan Brenneman. Want me to read it?
Yeah, let's do it. Read it.
All right. Email from Ryan. Nice to hear from you, Ryan. So first of all, it's been a while for me. Been busy with life and waiting for Foundation to return. Haven't we all? Anyway, did you guys catch the elevator trips at the end? This was at the end when Dylan, Irving, and Helena returned to work. The light at the elevator changes from green to red, and there's a ding sound for Dylan and Irving. For Helena, the camera zooms in and we cannot see the light. There is also no ding. Is this a clue that the severance function was deactivated for her descent? Is it just a red herring? I made a crappy video that shows it. We can put this in the show notes as well.
Yeah, it's a link to a YouTube video. Looks like it's showing everybody walking to the elevator.
Oh, he cut it up too. That's nice of him. He literally cut it up for us.
That's convenient. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Then he fast forward here to Helly. Okay, it's a zoom in, so we don't actually see if Helly gets re-severed to go down there. So to your point, Zach, I think she might have been studying the footage to get in character to play Helly, right? Which explains why she was so down on Mark in episode 1 about about the wife, so to speak. Like, oh, she's not your wife though,
Yeah.
So interesting. All right.
I also didn't hear a ding in that video either.
Yeah.
That Ryan pulled together. So maybe she was not severed going down.
All right, I'm going to read some comments from our previous YouTube deep dive, and we'll go from there. First one is from Lexus. I think I see the chick from Death Note on their picture, which is hilarious. She deserved better. You guys missed the reveal that Cobel is very likely severed. I think you were wrong. Or maybe you're right, according to Zach's potential theory. This season, they said the board will only speak to unsevered people, and if you remember, they did not speak to Cobel directly. There does seem to be this innate discrimination against severed people, to the point where they don't even speak to Helly, it seems. They spoke through Natalie only, but they're... By the way, Natalie... That's all I gotta say.
All right. Enough said.
But they're happy to speak to unsevered Milchick. Probably important to point out, and I hope it develops into something bigger. Maybe some backstory about her role in the company, or whether we're seeing innie outie Cobel at any given time. I think you're wrong about innie outie Cobel, but I think that there might be something to that theory. There's a bunch of replies under there if anybody wants to get into those, but we'll keep on going. The thing about Cobel is I think it's more of like a helicopter parent situation. This is from The Expressionist. It devolves from just a little bit of surveillance on Audi Mark to a full-fledged caretaking episode and being completely obsessed with Mark to make sure he's okay. I think this can be kind of supported in us viewing Cobel when she's helping Devin with the latching difficulties. The thing is also, assumedly, her mother died, so it could be understandable as a sort of trauma response to try and be a helicopter parent figure on Mark. I could see something like that, but to me it almost screams of somebody who just wants some sort of, community, intimacy with people, Mm-hmm. And maybe that's the reaction we see at the end of this second episode. Chime in, Zach, if you ever need to here. I think in the next episode. Okay. About Miss Cobel. Last season, she deliberately paired. This is from Matt Small, 5038. Last season, she deliberately paired Mark with Miss Casey to watch Helly after her suicide attempt. I think she did this because she is implied to have been raised in an Egan-run orphanage and so never had family connections of her own. What she wants to see is whether or not those two have a familial bond, which she never had a chance to experience, exist in some way post-Severance. It's also why she inserts herself into this family as a caregiver to his niece.
Is that in line with what I was saying? It kind of feels like it was.
Feels a little bit in line, yeah.
In regards to the Lumen Industries raising people up as young severed individuals that they can just slip off.
Yeah,
as they need.
As I mentioned last episode about maybe Huang being Mark's wife, or just a thought that came into my head. I don't know if it's true or not. Christopher Hagee put the little girl is Mark's wife at the age of a kid. I'm starting to think that it's not the case. I'm starting to think more that she is like the next Milchick or the next Cobel. That's what I think.
Yeah, raising them young.
Yeah. So that's all for the comments, at least the ones that I'm going to read this week. And you can leave us a comment on these deep dives on the instant reaction any week. Actually, let me make a note right now. If you got any comments to make, put them on the instant reaction because we released that about 2 days before. So then we can read them on the deep dive. We can kind of we can maybe be current with the comments, and then of course we'll go back to some of them on the following episodes. Zach, you want to go to categories?
Yeah, let's hop into it. Let's start with favorite character of the episode.
Helena, maybe Mark's sister. Actually, I really love Mark's sister. I'm gonna say Devin.
Okay, Helena was my choice, so I was a little disappointed you switched it there.
Well, if I'm gonna go like who had the most screen time, I'll say Helena. But if I'm gonna go with personal favorite because I just love how she is, I'm gonna say Devin.
All right, fair enough. How about favorite scene of the episode?
Oof. I really like the shot of Helena seeing that she kissed Mark on the inside, but it has to be the end scene of Cobel at the steering wheel, that just torturous silence before she just spazzes out and starts hitting her steering wheel.
Yeah, it was a very intense scene. I liked the start of the episode with Helena talking to Mrs. Cobel. I loved the way that was shot. I loved the way it looked. It was very interesting. Very interesting. So I'll pick that. Any lines that stood out to you in this episode?
You go first. You obviously have one.
I can't remember the exact words, but I think it was something along like, "Did I eat something?" Or was it something I ate?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When Milchick shows up, he's like, "How are you feeling? How are you doing?"
Milchick always has like a good bit of like, he says, your innie is a friend of mine. Like he just has like a way of saying things. I like the moment too, like kind of honorable mention, Dylan just lying his way through like so many people have to do in these job interviews. like I had a job interview experience.
Oh,
I had a
that's a
job
good
interview
scene.
experience last year. Okay, it was a gig that I was actually only interested in because of the potential would have been, because I like what I do and the way I do it. But this was kind of in the podcasting stratosphere, and they asked me in the middle of the interview. They were like, "Jordan or LeBron?" Just that was the question. It was just Jordan or LeBron. And I was just like, what? What the, what? It was kind of similar to like, which is fine. Like I gave my whole thing. Like the thing about me is I could talk about just about, I could talk about a lot of different subjects in that way. But it reminded me of Dylan in this episode where he's like, when did you first love doors? As if anybody grew up and was like, I want to be a freaking door salesman. Like I just love doors. I'm passionate about doors my whole life, And he says, when did you get passionate about doors? What's your favorite door? Pocket door. And he says, what kind of finish? Eggshell or whatever he says. And it's like a trick question. He goes, semi-gloss.
Yeah. That was actually very funny. I completely forgot about that scene. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
But I've got to ask you though, Jordan or LeBron?
It's a nuanced question. I'm not going to answer it the way people want me to answer it. Jordan is my personal GOAT, but who makes the team? Who makes individually the biggest impact on a team? LeBron. LeBron is the most dominant. 1 through 5 player, but in terms of winning the playoffs, get a win in a playoff game, no bullshit, never say die, as Alex Ferguson's famous kind of quip for Man United, that style of hard-nosed play. I'll play through a stomach virus. I'll play through anything. Like, I'll go play 18 holes of golf, and then I'll go to the shoot-around right after. I'll be betting with everybody and their mother in the arena, in the game. That's Michael Jordan all day. Now, could Michael Jordan have survived, like, because, he's a big gambler. He has, there's some theories out there about certain things. About his gambling and whatnot in his personal life. Could he have withstood the scrutiny that a LeBron James has had to endure during this social media era? The fact that LeBron hasn't had some major scandal in this social media era where there's a camera everywhere, where he's just known for being a great at basketball, spending $2 million on his body every year like a Cristiano Ronaldo. He's playing into his 40s now pretty much. Dominant still, and there's nothing bad about him out there. And by the way, he's been famous since he's been 15, 16 years old. So they literally named him the chosen one, or he put that name for himself. So LeBron's a badass too. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just a matter of what do I like, what resonates with me more is the Mamba mentality, is the Jordan killer mentality. It's that, and LeBron is more of a super freak Magic Johnson that can score 35 every night if he wants to, or 40 every night if he wants to. But he's not the type who is going to go head down and he's going to be the guy who takes the last shot. He's going to make the smartest basketball play every time. Jordan and Kobe got the egos of, I'm going to take that shot. Like, if I'm going to lose, it's going to be with my shot. And I like that in a player. That's why my favorite personas ever in sports are got to be MJ, Kobe, even, Roy Keane, if you take it to soccer, those types of person. Pat Riley's my favorite sports figure of all time. Like, that kind of mentality of like ruthless competitive nature, I love that. So that's why Jordan's the GOAT. But it is a nuanced question.
Yeah, I can tell by the length of that answer. Solid answer, though.
Yeah.
It's very convincing.
That's what you get. When you tune into the pod this long, you get this at the end of the episode.
You got to get a bonus. It's got to be a bonus question in there.
We're recording this at 1 a.m. on Saturday for y'all, so it's getting pretty delusional over here at this point.
For sure. Well, those were all of the categories I had. The only thing I was going to throw out was a potential early bet in this season.
That wakes me up.
All right. I'll snort some Coke there.
Did you snort some Coke?
Yeah, you woke up like you did. Selvig is severed. That's what I think. I don't think I would bet that both Selvig and Milchick are severed. Maybe I should though, because it would play into my theory of that's how Lumen controls people like this, and at least has a fail safe.
How much of a blanket safety do you have here? Is there gonna be a loophole? Because when I say, like, I might take the field here and say she's not, that has to include, it has to be the exact same procedure that these people got, that Mark, Dylan, Irv, and Helena got. Has to be the exact same one. It cannot be some other thing. Or are you getting that loophole included in their severed?
Well, I mean, I don't know what other thing you mean. I just mean they're severed. I don't know if it was a choice, or if it was when they were a freaking baby. I don't know.
Do they ever have an in and out, like an on and off switch for the severed though?
I think there has to be some level of that. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, their other them would still be like an infant or a child inside. So I feel like there would technically need to be some level of that. I just don't know how much.
The real question is Judd severed?
Is Judd severed?
Yeah. The security guard who checks him into the elevator every time. That's the biggest question on the show. No,
I don't think he's severed. I think he's a nice guy.
It's hard for me to bet against you here, because I do think that there's something up with them. But I'm just gonna go ahead and say no, they're not severed technically. But I don't really believe what I'm saying. I'm just doing it.
You're doing it to get something out. Look, that's fair. It's honorable.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the only thing I can think of at the moment. That's just like my gut tells me there's something there.
Well, just so you know, your innie is a friend of mine, and I would hate to reward his courage with unexistence. So
well,
that's why I take these bets. All right.
I don't know how that makes me feel.
Yeah. This is like when we were watching For All Mankind. Actually, I can't say it because I'm going to spoil something about For All Mankind. But a certain man was eating a Big Mac. You were like, well, if you did it from a certain angle, you wouldn't. That's how that made me feel too. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I also appreciate everybody that's been listening to this episode. So
it's a long one,
if
dude.
you've enjoyed it,
an hour
I know.
Plus,
I told you, I was like, I'd love to hit 40 minutes, but we're just going to talk more than 40 minutes.
There's so much
something
to talk
like this.
about.
There's so much detail in these episodes. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? There's also detail is that subscribe button. It turns a nice color when you click it. So if you enjoyed this episode, please hit it. But again, thank you for listening to Severance by Story Archives. You can find this podcast anywhere you find podcasts, Apple and Spotify podcasts primarily. You can visit us on YouTube at Soapbox Podcast Network, visit our website at soapbox.house, email us at contact@soapbox.house. And if you want to find some links to our social profiles, catch some of that micro content, some of the fun snippets from these episodes, you'll find links to those platforms on our website as well.
All right. We will see you guys on episode 3 of Severance.
Peace.